A stone farmhouse in the canton of Jura. 4 rooms, a south-facing garden, mountain views from the kitchen window. Asking price, 165,000 Swiss francs. It has been sitting on the market for 5 months. Nobody has made an offer. Not because there's something wrong with it. Not because the canton is inaccessible. There's a direct train to Basel in 45 minutes. Not because the price is inflated. Simply because the people who could easily afford it have, for reasons that take a few minutes to understand, never looked at this part of Switzerland. That changes today. The problem. Most people who encounter Swiss real estate for the first time walk away with a single dominant impression. It is expensive beyond comprehension. The numbers they see: 1.4 million Swiss francs national median, 20,000 Swiss francs per square meter in Geneva, and to 3 million Swiss francs for a Verbier ski apartment, are accurate. They reflect a real market that real people are participating in at those prices, but they are not the whole market. Switzerland's housing conversation has been captured almost entirely by the experience of its 3 or 4 most expensive cantons. The international press writes about Zurich. The expat community talks about Geneva. The property investors discuss Zug. These places are interesting, they are significant, and genuinely expensive. But they represent a fraction of the country's 26 cantonal housing markets. And the fraction that happens to attract attention is not the fraction where the accessible Switzerland lives. The accessible Switzerland exists. It has specific addresses. It has asking prices that are documented in public listings. And for the tens of thousands of people who arrive in Switzerland each year with a housing budget and no prior map of the full market, it remains almost entirely invisible. Not because it is hidden, but because the conversation never reaches it. That gap between reality and perception is a problem of information, not a problem of supply. It is worth being precise about the scale of the information gap. In Zurich, a standard 2-bedroom apartment on a new rental contract in 2026 costs 2,400 Swiss francs to 3,200 Swiss francs per month. In the canton of Glarus, connected to Zurich by a direct 40-minute train, the same unit type rents for 1,050 Swiss francs to 1,400 Swiss francs. That difference is not a minor variation in regional pricing. It is the difference between housing consuming a third of a middle-income household's take-home pay and housing consuming less than a fifth. The consequence is not abstract. It is the difference between being able to save, invest, and build financial resilience, and spending the decade treading water while rents absorb the surplus. The problem is compounded for international arrivals who have no pre-existing knowledge of the Swiss cantonal map. When a family relocates to Switzerland from the United Kingdom, the United States, Singapore, or anywhere outside the immediate region, the default reference points are Zurich and Geneva. These are the cities with international schools, English language infrastructure, and expat communities. These are also the most expensive places in the country. The family that arrives in Zurich, rents a 2,800 Swiss franc apartment because that is what Zurich offers, and spends 3 years there before leaving Switzerland, may never discover that 1,200 Swiss francs apartments existed 40 minutes away on a direct train. That is not a failure of the housing market. It is a failure of information distribution. Why the gap exists. The price gap between cheap and expensive Swiss cantons is structural, not accidental. It has been built by decades of employment concentration, fiscal policy divergence, and the self-reinforcing logic of prestige. Zurich and Geneva became expensive because they became indispensable. Financial institutions, international organizations, pharmaceutical research clusters, and technology firms chose these locations for reasons rooted in infrastructure, talent concentration, and regulatory environment. Each major employer that arrived made the location more attractive to the next one. Each wave of arriving professionals bid up rents and property prices, which made the canton more valuable, which attracted more capital, which attracted more professionals. The smaller cantons, Jura, Glarus, Uri, Obwalden, Appenzell, never entered that cycle. Their employment bases grew more slowly. Their populations remained stable or modest. and the demand pressure that compounds over decades in the cities simply did not materialize to the same degree. They have functioning economies, functioning infrastructure, and functioning housing markets. They just don't have the competitive bidding that drives prices into the stratosphere. There is also a cultural dimension to the gap. Swiss housing culture values stability. People who find a rental in Zurich or Geneva, even an expensive one, tend to stay for years. Moving to a cheaper canton requires not just a logistical willingness, but a psychological willingness to separate from the social and professional network that the city provides. That friction keeps the cheaper markets cheaper longer than pure economics would suggest. One more structural factor reinforces the gap: the Swiss mortgage stress test. Swiss banks require all mortgage applicants to demonstrate they could afford repayments at a theoretical 5% interest rate, regardless of the current actual rate. On a 450,000 Swiss franc property with a standard 20% deposit, the stress-tested monthly repayment is approximately 1,875 Swiss francs. On a 1.8 million Swiss franc Zurich apartment with the same deposit structure, the stress-tested repayment rises to approximately 7,500 Swiss francs per month, a figure that eliminates the majority of Swiss households from Zurich homeownership regardless of their savings. This means the buyers who would most benefit from knowing about cheap cantons are precisely the buyers who are most likely to be renting in expensive cities, because ownership in those cities is closed to them by the bank's affordability calculation. The cheap cantons remain cheap in part because their price levels are low enough that the stress test clears for middle-income households, creating a genuine ownership opportunity that has ceased to exist in the major cities for anyone short of a high-salary dual-income household with substantial existing capital. We cover deals like this every week on this channel. If you want to stay ahead of the Swiss market, subscribing takes 2 seconds. The solution: 10 cantons where your budget goes far. Here are the 10 cantons where, in 2026, a housing budget stretches the furthest. These are real markets with real listings and real infrastructure. Not every canton will suit every buyer, but every canton on this list represents a genuine alternative to the expensive Switzerland that gets all the attention. Canton 1. Jura. We opened with a farmhouse in Jura. Let's come back to it. Jura is Switzerland's youngest canton, formed in 1979 after a long and sometimes contentious political separation from the canton of Bern. It sits in the northwest, bordering France near Alsace, and it is, by almost every metric, the most affordable residential property market in Switzerland. Current asking prices for detached family homes in Jura's main towns run between 160,000 Swiss francs and 420,000 Swiss francs. 2-bedroom apartments, 780 Swiss francs to 1,100 Swiss francs per month to rent. The cantonal capital, Delémont, is a genuine small city, not a village, with a train station, shops, schools, a hospital, and a rail connection to Basel in 45 minutes. The trade-off: Jura has the lowest population density in Switzerland and a weaker local job market than the national average. For a remote worker, a retiree, or someone relocating from outside Switzerland with portable income, that trade-off is entirely manageable. For someone dependent on a specific Zurich employer, it requires either a long commute or a job change. Nobody told you this was possible. Most people looking for Swiss property never discover that a detached house with land in a functioning Swiss town with a train connection to a major city is available for under 200,000 Swiss francs. Canton 2. Glarus is one of the most visually striking cantons in Switzerland. A single narrow valley ringed by steep alpine walls, with the Linth River running through the middle and snow-capped peaks visible from the town center on a clear day. It is also consistently one of the most affordable residential markets in the German-speaking part of the country. 2-bedroom apartments in Glarus town and the valley villages rent for 1,050 Swiss francs to 1,400 Swiss francs per month. Buying opportunities for family houses in the 380,000 Swiss francs to 580,000 Swiss francs range are available regularly. Properties that would require 1.8 million Swiss francs or more to replicate in terms of space and scenic setting anywhere near Zurich. The critical practical advantage of Glarus is its train connection. The line from Glarus to Zurich Hauptbahnhof takes between 38 and 52 minutes, depending on the service. For a buyer working in Zurich 2 or 3 days a week, that commute is entirely within the range that hundreds of thousands of European workers accept as normal. The rent saving versus Zurich on a 2-bedroom apartment runs to 1,000 Swiss francs to 1,800 Swiss francs per month. On an annualized basis, 12,000 Swiss francs to 21,600 Swiss francs. That 165,000 Swiss francs farmhouse we opened with? It's not in Glarus, but Glarus has its equivalent. And it's been sitting there while Zurich buyers have been competing for studios at 2,400 Swiss francs per month. Canton 3. Uri sits at the southern end of Lake Lucerne, guarding the northern entrance to the Gotthard Tunnel, the most important transport corridor connecting northern and southern Europe through the Alps. It is mountainous, dramatic, and almost absent from the international housing conversation. The canton's main town, Altdorf, is approximately 35 minutes from Lucerne by train and just over an hour from Zurich. 2-bedroom apartments in Altdorf and the surrounding communities rent for 880 Swiss francs to 1,250 Swiss francs per month. Purchase prices for family houses run between 320,000 Swiss francs and 550,000 Swiss francs for habitable properties in good locations. Uri has a small population, around 37,000 people, and a limited local job market. But it has the natural environment of a Swiss national park on its doorstep, some of the best hiking and cycling terrain in the Alps, and the kind of quiet that money cannot buy in Lucerne or Zurich because those places have long since priced out the quiet. Canton 4. Obwalden. Obwalden sits at the geographic heart of Switzerland, centered on Lake Sarnen in a valley between Lucerne to the northeast and the Bernese Oberland to the west. It is one of the country's smallest cantons by population, around 40,000 residents, and one of its most scenic, with the lake visible from much of the valley floor and the Pilatus Massif dominating the eastern skyline. Rental prices in Sarnen, the cantonal capital, run 970 Swiss francs to 1,350 Swiss francs for a 2-bedroom apartment. Purchase prices for family homes range from 350,000 Swiss francs to 580,000 Swiss francs for properties in good condition with reasonable outdoor space. Lucerne is approximately 30 minutes by train, and Lucerne connects onward to Zurich in under an hour. The canton has a modestly above-average tax environment by Swiss standards, not the lowest, not the highest, and a reputation for conservative local governance and high civic stability. It does not attract the international crowd. It does attract Swiss families who have done the calculation and found that a house by a lake in the center of Switzerland, with the Alps visible from the garden, costs considerably less than an apartment on the wrong side of Zurich. Canton 5. Appenzell Innerrhoden. Switzerland's smallest canton by population. Approximately 16,000 people. A tradition of hand-painted farmhouses, embroidered textiles, and the Landsgemeinde, the outdoor assembly where citizens vote with raised hands that has been practiced here for centuries. Property prices in Appenzell Innerrhoden have barely moved over the last decade. Renovated farmhouses in the villages around the main town, Gonten, Schwende, Brülisau, Wiesbad, trade between 380,000 Swiss francs and 570,000 Swiss francs. The same properties were selling at 340,000 Swiss francs to 490,000 Swiss francs in 2015. That is a 10 to 15% decade-long increase against a national average appreciation of more than triple that figure. St. Gallen is 40 minutes by train. St. Gallen connects to Zurich in under an hour. The total commute from Appenzell to Zurich is long but possible for someone commuting 2 or 3 days per week. The canton has no significant international expat community, no English language infrastructure, and no brand recognition outside Switzerland. It also has world-class hiking in the Alpstein, genuinely clean air, and family houses at prices that feel like they belong to a different era of the Swiss market. That sense of belonging to a different era is not an illusion. Appenzell Innerrhodden's prices are low because the forces that inflated prices elsewhere, international demand, corporate relocation, tax arbitrage migration, have not operated here, and those forces are unlikely to arrive in force anytime soon. The canton has deliberately maintained its character and has no major development pipeline that would change its cost structure. For a buyer who wants Swiss property at 2015 prices, Appenzell Innerrhoden is one of the few places in 2026 where that is still available. Canton 6, Appenzell Ausserrhoden. The other half of Appenzell, Ausserrhoden, offers broadly similar value at slightly lower property prices than its inner counterpart, with the additional advantage of better rail connectivity. Towns like Herisau, Tüffen, and Gais offer two-bedroom apartments at 950 Swiss francs to 1,300 Swiss francs per month. Purchase prices for older family homes in good condition run 320,000 Swiss francs to 520,000 Swiss francs. Herisau in particular sits on a direct rail line to St. Gallen and, through it, to Zurich. The canton is more industrially rooted than Appenzell Innerrhoden. There are medium-sized manufacturing and logistics employers, which makes the local job market slightly more robust, and the total commute burden for buyers who want to retain access to Zurich employment slightly more manageable. Might remember that farmhouse in Jura we opened with? Appenzell Ausserrhoden has something comparable. Older farmhouse stock, stone and wood construction, gardens and outbuildings. At the lower end of the 300,000 Swiss francs to 500,000 Swiss francs range, in a canton that is 90 minutes from Zurich rather than 90 minutes from Basel. Canton 7. Upper Valais. The canton of Valais is split by more than geography. Its western end, dominated by the resort towns of Verbier, Crans-Montana, and Zermatt, is one of the most expensive residential markets in Switzerland, frozen in supply by the 2012 Weber Initiative and driven to extraordinary price levels by international demand. Its eastern end, the Upper Valais, German-speaking, agricultural, and largely unknown to international buyers, operates at a completely different price level. In towns like Visp, Brigg, Angampel, and Leukstadt, detached family homes currently list between 280,000 Swiss francs and 490,000 Swiss francs. These are not remote hamlets. Visp is a regional transport hub with rail connections to Lausanne, Geneva, and Bern. Brigg is the main gateway to the Simplon Pass and the Lötschberg Tunnel. The valley has hospital facilities, secondary schools, and a functioning commercial infrastructure. The price differential within a single canton is remarkable. A 320,000 Swiss franc family house in Leukstadt sits approximately 60 kilometers and an hour's drive from a Verbier ski apartment that sells for 1.8 million Swiss francs. The mountain backdrop is the same, the canton is the same, the price is not. Canton 8, Solothurn. Solothurn is a mid-sized canton in the Swiss Mittelland, the central plateau that runs between the Jura mountain chain in the north and the Alps in the south. Its capital, also called Solothurn, is a Baroque city on the Aare River, consistently ranked as one of the most architecturally well-preserved small cities in Switzerland. It is not the cheapest canton on this list, but it offers a combination of urban quality, infrastructure depth, and property affordability that no other canton in its price range can match. Two-bedroom apartments in Solothurn City and the surrounding Mittelland towns rent for 1,150 Swiss francs to 1,600 Swiss francs per month. Purchase prices for family houses in good condition range from 420,000 Swiss francs to 750,000 Swiss francs, with significant variance depending on proximity to major rail lines. Olten, and in the northeast of the canton, is one of Switzerland's most important rail junctions, with connections to Zurich, Bern, Basel, and Lucerne, all within 30 to 45 minutes. That 165,000 Swiss francs property we opened with, the Jura farmhouse that nobody had made an offer on, represents the end of the Swiss affordability spectrum. Solothurn represents the moderate end, still dramatically cheaper than Zurich or Geneva, with better access to multiple urban centers, and with the kind of historic town center architecture that most buyers would pay a significant premium for in any major Swiss city. Solothurn also offers something less tangible but genuinely valuable: a sense of being in a real Swiss city rather than a suburb or a mountain village. For buyers who want affordable Switzerland but are not ready to leave the social infrastructure of an urban environment entirely, Solothurn's combination of price, connectivity, and genuine urban character makes it one of the most sensible choices on this list. There is a final practical note worth adding for any buyers seriously considering a canton on this list. Swiss mortgage accessibility improves significantly at these price levels. The federal affordability stress test, calculated at a theoretical 5% interest rate, produces a manageable monthly obligation at 400,000 Swiss francs to 600,000 Swiss francs. A household with a combined income of 130,000 Swiss francs to 160,000 Swiss francs, which is not exceptional in Swiss terms, can clear the affordability calculation for a property in this range. In Zurich or Geneva, the same household would need to triple its income before the bank would process a mortgage application. That difference, between being a viable buyer and being frozen out, is what the cheap cantons actually represent for the Swiss middle class. Not a compromise. An opening. Canton 9, Thurgau. Thurgau lies in northeastern Switzerland on the southern shore of Lake Constance, one of the largest lakes in Central Europe, shared between Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. It is predominantly agricultural, dotted with orchards and farmland, and largely absent from the Swiss property conversation despite being immediately adjacent to the most expensive housing markets in the country. The canton's proximity to Zurich, between 30 and 50 minutes by train from the main Thurgau towns of Frauenfeld and Kreuzlingen, makes it one of the most practical and affordable alternatives for Zurich workers willing to commute. Average two-bedroom apartment rents run 1,100 Swiss francs to 1,550 Swiss francs. Purchase prices for family houses: 400,000 Swiss francs to 720,000 Swiss francs for properties in reasonable condition. Frauenfeld, the cantonal capital, is a functioning mid-sized town with complete public services and a character that is genuinely Swiss without being either rustic or expensive. Canton 10, Nidwalden. Nidwalden shares a border with Obwalden. They were once a single administrative unit and occupies the eastern shore of Lake Lucerne. Its main town, Stans, sits at the base of the Stanzerhorn with direct views across the lake toward Lucerne. Earlier, we said this was a problem of awareness. Here is the evidence from Nidwalden. Properties with genuine alpine lake views in a canton directly adjacent to Lucerne are available at purchase prices of 380,000 Swiss francs to 620,000 Swiss francs for family homes. Rental apartments in Stans run 1,050 Swiss francs to 1,450 Swiss francs per month for 2 bedrooms. The canton benefits from a moderately low tax rate, better than Jura but not matching Zug, and has a small but stable employment base in precision manufacturing and services. Lucerne is 20 minutes by train and connection. For a buyer who wants the lake, the mountains, the clean air, and a housing cost that does not consume the majority of a Swiss income, Nidwalden is one of the least discussed but most compelling options on the full Swiss map. These 10 cantons are not the Switzerland of the postcard. When they are not Zurich, Geneva, or Verbier. They do not appear in the international press coverage of Swiss real estate, and they rarely appear in the relocation guides. But they are in Switzerland. They have the trains, the hospitals, the schools, the civic infrastructure, and the natural environment that make Switzerland worth the cost of living in. The difference is that in these 10 cantons, the cost is something that an ordinary working saving household can actually sustain. The affordable Switzerland is not a myth. It is not a consolation. It has specific postcodes, specific asking prices, and specific train times to the nearest major city. What it has lacked, until recently, is an audience that knows to look for it. That 165,000 Swiss francs farmhouse we opened with, the one in Jura that had been on the market for 5 months, exists within the same Swiss system that produced 3 million Swiss francs Verbier chalets and 2,400 Swiss francs per month Zurich studio rentals. It is not an exception to the Swiss housing market. It is the part of the Swiss housing market that most coverage simply never reaches. We have covered 10 cantons in this script. Every one of them has properties available today, listed on public platforms, documented with legal titles, connected to Swiss infrastructure, at prices that most of the people currently paying Zurich or Geneva rates would find striking if they had ever been shown the full picture. The question worth sitting with after watching this is not whether these places are real. They are. Or the question is what it would actually take to go and look,